The galaxy had known many conflicts, but none were as long or as fierce as the war between the humans and the Zethar Dominion. It began with fear and misunderstanding, but over the years it turned into a fight for survival. Entire planets changed hands, fleets were lost, and both sides learned the terrible cost of pride. Among the millions who served in the human fleets, one soldier stood out for reasons that had nothing to do with power or fame. His name was Aaron, a ground soldier with no title and no noble blood. He was not the strongest or the fastest, but his calm spirit and quick thinking had saved more lives than anyone could count. Aaron came from a quiet world that had no great cities or tall towers. His parents were simple farmers who believed that courage was not about fighting, but about standing up when others could not. When the war reached his home system, Aaron joined the defense forces without hesitation. He did not join for glory. He joined because someone had to protect the people who could not protect themselves. Years passed, and the war spread across hundreds of systems. The Zethar were a proud and powerful species. Their ships were sleek and fast, their technology older and more advanced than human science. Many thought humans could never win against them, yet the humans had something the Zethar did not understand. They had unity, creativity, and a spirit that refused to break. Aaron's first taste of real battle came on the frozen moon of Maris III. The human outpost there had been surrounded by Zethar forces. The commander was injured and panic was spreading among the soldiers. Aaron took charge even though he had no rank to do so. He guided the team to use the icy cliffs as cover and led them in a counterattack that surprised the enemy. The humans turned what should have been a defeat into a victory. From that day, Aaron became known for his calm leadership. Stories about him traveled from one camp to another. Some said he never raised his voice even when the sky burned. Others said he would risk his life to save a single wounded soldier. But to Aaron, these stories did not matter. Every life mattered equally, and he believed no soldier should ever be left behind. As the years dragged on, the war changed. The fighting grew harder. Both sides began to lose hope. Peace seemed like a dream that would never come. Then came the turning point. The Zethar Dominion built a massive battle station orbiting the twin suns of Varan. It was large enough to destroy entire fleets. The Human Alliance decided to send every ship they had to destroy it. Aaron was part of the ground assault team chosen to infiltrate the core and disable the energy reactors. The mission began under heavy fire. The skies were full of bright trails from plasma bolts. The sound of explosions echoed across the metal corridors. Aaron and his team moved with precision. They had trained for months and every step counted. He carried a simple rifle and a pack of tools. He preferred to rely on his mind rather than his weapon. Inside the reactor chamber, the temperature was rising fast. The machines roared like thunder. When they reached the main console, they realized that the Zethar had set a self-destruct trap. If the reactor went critical, it would not only destroy the station but also the nearby planets and ships from both sides. The human and Zethar fleets would be wiped out together. The officer in charge wanted to retreat, but Aaron refused to leave. He studied the control patterns and noticed something hidden in the codes. The Zethar had built a failsafe system that could stop the explosion, but it had to be activated manually from the center of the reactor. The chamber was unstable and the heat could kill anyone who entered. Aaron looked at the faces of his teammates. He saw fear but also trust. He smiled and told them to go. They argued, but he insisted. Someone had to do it, and he was the one who could. Before stepping inside, he sent a message to the command ship telling them how to finish the shutdown sequence once the failsafe was triggered. The reactor core glowed bright like a small sun. The air was thick and heavy. Aaron climbed down to the central console and pressed the keys with steady hands. The floor trembled under his feet. The alarm screamed. The heat burned his skin, but he did not stop. When the final switch turned green, the explosion stopped. The blinding light faded, and the station began to stabilize. When Aaron returned to his ship, he was weak and covered in burns, but alive. The mission had succeeded. The Zethar flagship was captured, and their leaders finally called for peace talks. For the first time in years, the galaxy saw the end of war. Back on Earth's capital, celebrations filled the skies. The leaders of the Human Alliance gathered to honor their heroes. Among them stood generals, admirals, and diplomats. But the crowd cheered loudest for the quiet soldier who had saved them all. Aaron stood humbly as his name echoed across the hall. The Supreme Council decided to hold a peace ceremony with the Zethar Dominion. They invited Aaron as the representative of human courage. The event was to take place on a neutral planet known as Ceres Prime, a world of green forests and silver towers where the two sides would finally sign the peace treaty. As Aaron arrived, he noticed how strange it felt to see former enemies walking side by side. The Zethar soldiers looked taller and thinner than humans, with smooth blue skin and bright silver eyes. Their faces carried the same tired look that humans had. War had taken much from both sides. Inside the Grand Hall, the Galactic Council members took their places. At the center stood a round table made of transparent crystal, glowing softly under the sunlight that streamed through the glass dome. The banners of every world fluttered above. When the Zethar delegation entered, silence filled the hall. Among them walked a small figure dressed in soft white robes. It was a young Zethar woman, frail and quiet, standing a little behind the others. Her steps were slow and careful, as if each one required effort. She kept her eyes low and said nothing. Aaron noticed her, though he did not know who she was. There was something gentle about her presence, something that reminded him of peace itself. The ceremony began with long speeches. The human leaders spoke of courage and sacrifice. The Zethar leaders spoke of regret and unity. Everyone listened politely, though their hearts still carried old wounds. When the time came to honor the heroes, Aaron was called forward. The council leader, a wise elder named Marin, turned to him and said, "Soldier Aaron, your bravery ended this war and saved countless lives. The council grants you a choice. You may ask for anything you wish: wealth, land, command, or even a world to call your own. What will you choose?" The hall went quiet. Everyone waited for his answer. Some expected him to ask for command of the fleet. Others thought he would choose riches or a seat on the council. Aaron looked around the hall. His eyes stopped for a moment on the quiet Zethar woman in white. She looked fragile, almost out of place among the tall warriors beside her. Yet there was kindness in her eyes, a look of someone who had seen too much pain and still wished for peace. He did not speak right away. He remembered the long years of battle, the faces of those who had fallen, and the endless noise of war. He had seen strength in many forms, but what the galaxy needed now was not more strength. It needed healing. Aaron bowed his head in respect to the council. His voice was calm when he finally spoke. "I do not seek land or power. My choice is simple." He looked toward the Zethar delegation, his gaze steady and kind. "I wish to meet the one who stands behind your line. The one in white." A murmur spread through the hall. The Zethar leaders exchanged puzzled looks. One of them stepped forward and said, "That is Princess Nira, youngest of our royal family. She is frail and carries no title of strength. Why would you choose her?" Aaron smiled softly. "Because peace does not come from power. It comes from understanding. If we are to build a new future, I would rather begin it with someone who values life, not war." The hall fell silent again. No one expected this choice. The council members looked at each other, unsure what to say. The Zethar delegation whispered among themselves. Princess Nira lifted her head for the first time. Her silver eyes met Aaron's from across the room. She did not speak, but there was a hint of surprise and a question in her gaze. And so began the story that would change the fate of two worlds. The hall stayed silent after Aaron made his strange request. The crowd did not know what to think. Some looked shocked. Some whispered quietly to each other. Even the Zethar delegation could not hide their surprise. They had expected a demand for power, not a request to meet a quiet princess who was almost forgotten by her own people. The council leader cleared his throat. "Soldier Aaron," he said, "this is an unusual request. The princess is not a warrior or a ruler. She holds no power within her kingdom. Are you certain this is your choice?" Aaron nodded calmly. "Yes, council leader. I am certain." The elder studied him for a moment, then turned to the Zethar side. "Would the Dominion allow this meeting?" The Zethar Prime Minister, an older figure with long silver markings on his face, stepped forward. He looked at the princess, then back at Aaron. "If this is his wish, then we will allow it. But the princess is weak and easily exhausted. She cannot handle long conversations or travel." Aaron bowed his head politely. "I only wish to speak with her. Nothing more." Princess Nira stood still, uncertain what to do. Her thin fingers touched the edge of her robe as if trying to steady herself. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and careful. If this meeting brings peace, I will agree. The council ordered a quiet room to be prepared. It was a small chamber filled with green plants and soft light. The walls were made of glass, and from inside one could see the endless forests of Ceres Prime stretching to the horizon. Aaron entered first. He stood near the window, looking at the distant trees swaying in the wind. When Nira entered, he turned and bowed politely. "Thank you for coming, Princess," he said. Nira gave a small nod. "I do not understand why you chose me," she said. "Many others are stronger and wiser than I am." Aaron smiled gently. "Maybe, but I did not ask for strength or wisdom. I asked for someone who could remind us what peace looks like. When I saw you, I saw calmness in your eyes. After so many years of war, calmness is something worth choosing." Nira looked at him with quiet surprise. No one had ever spoken to her that way before. Among her people, she was often seen as fragile and unimportant. Her body was weak since birth, and her voice rarely carried far. Even in her royal home, she was often kept away from the court. She sat on a small bench, her hands resting on her knees. "You think peace can begin with someone like me?" she asked softly. Aaron nodded. "I believe peace begins with understanding, and understanding starts with listening. You do not need power to listen." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the wind brushing against the glass filled the silence. Then Nira asked, "Why did you fight this war, human soldier?" Aaron looked out the window again. "At first I fought because I had to. My home was attacked and my people were in danger. But as the war went on, I realized something. Both sides were afraid. Both sides lost too much. We were fighting shadows of fear that kept growing." He turned back to her. "I do not want the next generation to live the same way." Nira's eyes softened. "You speak as if you carry the weight of every world." Aaron gave a quiet smile. "I think we all carry it even if we do not notice. The question is what we do with that weight." Their meeting lasted longer than anyone expected. They spoke about their worlds, their cultures, and their hopes for what peace might bring. Aaron asked her about Zethar customs, and she asked him about human art, music, and family life. He told her how humans painted the skies of their worlds, how children played under open air, and how people gathered to sing when times were hard. Nira listened closely. Her eyes glowed with gentle curiosity. "Your people sound so full of life," she said. "We Zethar forgot what joy feels like long ago. We built machines to do our work and lost the habit of feeling wonder." Aaron leaned forward slightly. "Then maybe peace can help both our people remember what life feels like again." When the meeting ended, the council was waiting outside. They were surprised to see both of them walking side by side, calm and thoughtful. The Zethar delegation expected Nira to be tired or upset, but she looked peaceful. Later that night, when the stars filled the sky above Ceres Prime, Aaron stood on the balcony of his quarters. He looked at the stars and thought about what had just happened. He had seen something different in that meeting. Nira was not weak in spirit. She was quiet, yes, but inside her was a strength that did not shout. It was the strength of patience and kindness. The next morning, the council gathered again to finalize the peace treaty. They announced that both sides would exchange envoys to ensure cooperation. To everyone's surprise, the Zethar Prime Minister announced that Princess Nira would serve as the first envoy from the Dominion to live among humans. The hall filled with murmurs once again. Many did not agree. They thought she was too weak to handle the duty. But Aaron stepped forward and said, "Then I will take responsibility for her safety and help her learn about our world. It will be an honor." The council discussed the matter for hours. Finally, they agreed. Aaron would escort Princess Nira to Earth and act as her guardian and guide, while she learned about human society. When Nira heard this decision, she felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude. She had never left her homeworld before. She had spent her life surrounded by doctors and quiet halls, not crowds or travel. Yet when she looked at Aaron, she saw no judgment in his eyes, only trust. That trust gave her courage. The journey to Earth began a few days later. They boarded a silver transport ship that glided silently through the stars. Nira sat near the window most of the time, watching the light of distant suns pass by. Aaron checked the controls and sometimes joined her to talk. "You have traveled many worlds, haven't you?" Nira asked one day. Aaron shook his head. "Not as many as I would like. Most of my travels were during battle. I did not have time to see beauty in them. This journey is different," she smiled faintly. "It is my first time leaving home." Everything looks endless. The stars feel alive. They are, Aaron said softly. Every one of them holds a story. Maybe someday people from both our races will visit them together. Not as enemies, but as friends. Her eyes brightened a little. That sounds like a dream worth chasing. During the long trip, Aaron noticed that Nira grew tired easily. Her breathing sometimes became shallow after walking too long. He made sure she rested and brought her herbal tea made from Earth's plants. She was curious about every new taste and asked questions about each thing she saw. When they reached Earth's orbit, Nira pressed her hands against the glass as she looked at the blue and green planet below. "It looks alive," she whispered. "So full of color," Aaron smiled. "Welcome to my home." The landing station was prepared for their arrival. Reporters, officials, and citizens gathered to see the alien princess who had become a symbol of peace. But Aaron could see that Nira was nervous. The crowd, the lights, and the noise overwhelmed her. He leaned close and said gently, "Take slow breaths. You are safe here. Just walk beside me." She nodded and followed him down the ramp. The crowd quieted as they walked. No one had ever seen a Zethar so closely before. Instead of fear, many felt wonder. Children waved small flags, and some adults placed flowers on the path. Nira's silver eyes moved slowly over the crowd. She felt something she had never felt before. A warm welcome from strangers who expected nothing from her. It filled her heart with a strange light. The following days were full of meetings and introductions. Scientists wanted to learn from her people's technology. Artists wanted to paint her portrait. Leaders wanted her opinion on trade and peace. She answered what she could, but often she turned to Aaron for help. At night, when the halls were quiet, they would talk again about life and hope. Nira told him stories from her childhood, how she loved to watch the sky from her room and imagine what other worlds might look like. Aaron told her about his village and how the stars above Earth always reminded him of dreams yet to come. Bit by bit, the fear between their worlds began to fade. People started to see that the Zethar were not monsters but living beings with hopes and feelings. Yet not everyone was pleased. Some powerful figures whispered that Aaron had made a mistake. They said his choice of the weakest princess would make humans look foolish. They did not understand that what he saw in her was something greater than strength, but Aaron did not argue with them. He only said, "Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it heals instead of breaking." Nira heard his words and smiled. She knew her life had changed forever, and deep inside she began to believe that maybe she could change more than she ever thought possible. The story of their friendship was only beginning, but already the galaxy was watching. The months after Princess Nira's arrival on Earth passed slowly but peacefully. Every sunrise brought new challenges but also new understanding. People across the planet spoke her name with curiosity and respect. To the humans, she was not just a symbol of peace between two species, but also a living reminder that gentleness could heal what war had broken. Aaron stayed by her side as her guardian and guide. His duty was not written in any law, but it was something he had chosen with his heart. He had promised the council he would watch over her, but the more time he spent with her, the more he felt it was not a promise to the council. It was a promise to himself. The princess was delicate in health. Even short walks under the bright Earth sun would tire her, and she often had to rest. Her body could not handle the air of this planet easily, but she tried her best not to show discomfort. She wanted to learn, to understand, and to connect. Each morning, Aaron would meet her in the garden built especially for her near the embassy grounds. It was a wide space filled with soft green grass, colorful flowers, and small fountains that reflected the sunlight like liquid glass. The garden reminded her of home, though she often said Earth's sky was brighter. Aaron brought her books about human history, music, and science. Sometimes he read to her, and sometimes she read aloud in her soft, careful voice. She loved stories that spoke about kindness, courage, and hope. She said they reminded her that peace was not built in a day. It was built in hearts. One morning, when the air was cool and the sky clear, Nira looked up from a book about human explorers and said, "Your people are brave. You go to unknown worlds just to see what is beyond. Even after all you have lost, you still look for new beginnings." "That is a rare gift," Aaron smiled gently. "Maybe curiosity keeps us alive. We always want to see what is next, even when we are afraid." She nodded and looked at the horizon. "My people used to explore too long ago. But after centuries of success, they grew proud and afraid of failure. They stopped exploring. They chose control over discovery. That is how we began to lose ourselves. Her words carried sadness, and Aaron felt it. He could tell that even though the war had ended, she still carried guilt for her people's choices. Then maybe this time, he said softly, we can explore together. Humans and Zethar, not to conquer but to learn. Nira looked at him with warmth in her silver eyes. Together, she repeated quietly. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship grew stronger. They learned from each other in ways no one expected. Nira taught Aaron about the Zethar way of thinking, how they used emotion and logic together when solving problems. She explained that their minds worked with patterns of sound and light, and that they believed every being had a frequency of their own. Aaron found it fascinating. He noticed that sometimes when Nira spoke or touched the leaves of a plant, faint vibrations passed through the air, almost like soft music that no one else could hear. One evening, during a quiet walk through the garden, Nira suddenly stopped and pressed her hand to a small tree. The tree had been drying for weeks, its leaves brown from the change in climate. Aaron had thought it would soon die, but as Nira stood there, her eyes closed. A soft shimmer spread from her fingertips. The tree trembled slightly, and when she opened her eyes again, a single green leaf had begun to grow. Aaron watched in silence, amazed. "What did you do?" he asked. Nira smiled faintly. "Nothing special. My people can sense the rhythm of living things. Sometimes we can remind them how to grow again. It is a small gift." He looked at the small leaf, bright and new. "It is not small," he said. "It is hope." Her smile grew a little wider. "Then I am glad." Word of her gentle ability spread quickly. Scientists came to study it, hoping to understand how the Zethar used sound and energy to heal living matter. But Aaron made sure they respected her boundaries. He knew she was not an experiment. She was a person who gave more than anyone expected, even when she was tired. Nira was grateful for his protection. She often said, "You treat me not as a guest or a symbol, but as a friend. That is what makes you different." He would simply reply, "Friendship does not need permission. It only needs trust." One day, a group of school children from the city visited the embassy garden. They wanted to meet the alien princess they had heard so much about. Nira was nervous at first, but Aaron encouraged her. "They are not here to judge you," he said kindly. "They only want to meet someone who helped bring peace." When the children arrived, they surrounded her with innocent excitement. They asked questions about her home, her people, and the stars. Nira answered with patience, and her gentle voice filled the garden with warmth. A small girl gave her a handmade flower crown and said shyly, "You look like the stories about fair queens." Nira laughed softly, the sound light and pure. "Then I will wear it proudly." Aaron watched from a distance, feeling something stir inside him. He had seen many faces during war, most of them hard and filled with fear. But now he saw joy, simple and honest. The sight reminded him that peace was more than silence after battle. It was life returning to the world. As months passed, Aaron and Nira began to travel to different parts of Earth. They visited cities, villages, and schools, speaking to people about peace and cooperation. Wherever they went, crowds welcomed them. Humans wanted to learn from the Zethar, and the Zethar sent messages of friendship in return. Still, not everyone accepted this change easily. Some politicians whispered that Aaron had made a strange choice by standing beside a fragile princess. They thought his actions made humans look weak. But those who met Nira in person changed their minds. Her calm strength touched even the hardest hearts. During one of their travels, they visited an island research center where human and Zethar scientists were working together for the first time. The center studied energy waves that could power cities without harm to nature. While Aaron spoke with the researchers, Nira explored the quiet laboratory. She stood before a large chamber that glowed faintly with energy. One of the scientists explained that it was designed to collect signals from across the galaxy. Nira placed her hand near the glass. Her expression turned thoughtful. "This frequency feels wrong," she said. The scientist frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "It feels like a whisper filled with fear." Later that night, Nira told Aaron about it. "Something in that signal was not natural," she said softly. It felt like a call for help. Aaron took her words seriously. He had learned never to doubt her instincts. Together, they spoke with the scientist and began to study the data more carefully. It took weeks, but finally, they discovered something hidden inside the noise of the signal. A pattern, almost like a message. The message came from the edge of known space, near a region that had been destroyed during the war. It was faint but repeating, "It says alive," Nira whispered after listening carefully. "Someone or something is alive out there." Aaron looked at her. A survivor? Maybe, or maybe something new. The discovery caused excitement across the research teams. Some believed it could be leftover war machines. Others thought it might be a lost colony. But for Aaron and Nira, it was something more. It was a reminder that the galaxy still had mysteries, and that their journey together was far from over. In the weeks that followed, Nira's health began to improve slightly. Earth's doctors found ways to balance her body with the planet's air. She still needed rest, but her spirit grew stronger each day. She started painting using soft colors, inspired by the gardens and skies she loved so much. One afternoon, Aaron joined her while she painted a sunrise. "You have talent," he said, watching her brush move carefully across the paper. She smiled without looking up. "I only paint what I feel. The light of your world feels alive. When I paint it, I feel like I am breathing it." He watched her for a long moment. "You make everything around you better, princess." She turned her head slightly. "And you make everything safe, Aaron. Together, that is balance." The bond between them had become something deep and quiet. They did not need to speak much to understand each other. Sometimes they would simply sit in silence, watching the sky or listening to the soft sound of wind. But in that silence, a new question began to rise in both their hearts. What would happen next? Could peace truly last in a galaxy still learning how to forgive? And what was the strange signal that called from the edge of the stars? Neither of them had the answers yet. But they both knew one thing. Whatever came, they would face it together. For Aaron, the weakest princess had become the strongest light he had ever known. And for Nira, the quiet human soldier had become the steady heartbeat of a world she had once feared to see. Their fragile bond had grown into something powerful enough to touch two worlds. And perhaps, soon, even the stars beyond. The peace between humans and Zethar was still new when a new challenge appeared, though no one expected it to be so immediate. Across the galaxy, reports arrived from remote outposts. Machines from the old war thought destroyed were becoming active again. They moved without guidance, their original programming corrupted by the years of neglect. These machines were not like ordinary weapons. They had the ability to adapt and rebuild themselves. Aaron and Nira were together in the embassy garden when the first message arrived. The alert lights flashed softly, signaling an emergency. Aaron picked up the communication device and listened carefully. "Multiple systems report rogue machines moving toward inhabited planets," the officer's voice said. "We have no clear way to stop them. Standard weapons are ineffective. Priority: protect civilians." Aaron set the device down and looked at Nira. "This is worse than we thought," he said. "These machines were built for war. If we do not act fast, countless lives are in danger." Nira's silver eyes narrowed, her calm voice steady despite the worry. "Then we must find a way. There's always a pattern in what seems random. Sometimes the solution is hidden in the smallest details." Aaron studied her face. He had seen her weakness, her frail body, but never doubted the strength in her mind. "Then you are coming with me," he said firmly. "We will figure this out together." The team prepared quickly. Humans and Zethar worked side by side for the first time since the war. Ships were readied, equipment checked, and communication channels established across every known frequency. Nira, though small and weak, insisted on being part of the mission. She refused to stay behind. On the bridge of the command ship, Aaron watched her closely. "You are sure you can handle this?" he asked gently. Nira nodded. "I may be weak in body, but I can see patterns that others cannot. Let me try. It is the only way we can save everyone." As they traveled toward the outer systems, reports grew worse. Planets that had been peaceful for decades were under threat. The machines did not attack randomly. They followed invisible paths, as if guided by some intelligence. When they reached the first affected system, the sight was alarming. Cities were abandoned and the machines moved in perfect order, dismantling infrastructure without harm to themselves. Aaron studied the enemy's formation, but even his military experience could not immediately reveal a weakness. Nira stood quietly beside him, her gaze scanning every movement. She listened to the faint vibrations of energy in the machines, subtle shifts that no one else noticed. They respond to sound and light, she said softly. The machines are linked. If we change the frequency, we can control them. The scientists aboard the ship looked skeptical. Change the frequency? One asked. How is that possible? Nira explained that the machines had been designed by Zethar engineers centuries ago, using their own methods of energy communication. They do not understand emotions or patterns of life, she said, but they react to harmonics, waves of energy that connect everything. If we can send a pulse at the right frequency, it will stop them without destroying them. Aaron turned to her. Do you know what frequency to use? Nira nodded faintly. I can feel it. But I will need calm surroundings and silence. My mind must focus completely. Aaron arranged for a small chamber on the ship to be made quiet. He stood by her side, supporting her physically when she felt weak. Nira closed her eyes and began to hum softly. The sound was gentle, almost imperceptible at first, but it grew into a steady rhythm. She moved her hands in patterns that seemed strange to the others, but Aaron noticed the energy in the chamber shifting as she worked. Hours passed, and the crew grew anxious. The machines continued moving across the planets. Then slowly their actions began to falter. Their coordination broke and they paused mid-task. Lights on the machines flickered. Keep going, Aaron whispered. He held her hand, steadying her when fatigue threatened to stop her. You are doing it. I know you can. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the machines stopped completely. They powered down as if asleep and the cities remained intact. The humans in Zethar cheered, but Aaron remained calm. He watched Nira carefully, seeing the exhaustion in her body. She opened her eyes slowly, a faint smile on her lips. It is done, she whispered. Her voice was soft but confident. The machines will no longer harm anyone, at least for now. The scientists aboard the ship were amazed. They had studied war technology for decades, but none could have predicted a solution like this. They asked her how she had done it, but Nira only shook her head. It is not something I can explain easily. The machines listen in ways your technology cannot measure. I only guided them with what I could sense. Aaron squeezed her hand gently. You are incredible, he said. Not because you are strong in body, but because you are strong in mind. Nira looked at him and laughed softly, a sound of relief and joy. I am nothing without your support. You believed in me when no one else did. Their victory became known throughout the galaxy. Messages of gratitude and admiration poured in from planets that had been saved. For the first time, humans and Zethar leaders saw that cooperation and trust could achieve what weapons alone never could. Yet even in celebration, Aaron and Nira remained focused. They knew the threat of rogue machines might return. Nira insisted on studying the signals further, mapping patterns and creating safeguards for the future. The scientists learned from her, adapting their machines and technologies to work in harmony rather than destruction. During quiet moments, Aaron would sit beside her and ask, Do you feel tired? Always, Nira admitted, but this is worth it. The lives we saved make my weakness feel smaller. Aaron smiled. Your mind is stronger than any soldier's arm. You showed us that courage comes in many forms. Nira's eyes softened. You always see the good in me, even when I doubt myself. Their bond deepened further during these missions. They no longer needed words to understand each other. A single glance or gesture conveyed reassurance, trust, and hope. They were two different beings from two different worlds, yet they moved together like a single team. One evening, after a long day of work, Nira stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Aaron joined her silently. Do you ever wonder why they made me weak? She asked softly. Why my body could not keep up with others of my kind? Aaron considered her question. Perhaps it was so that you would develop another kind of strength. Not one everyone can see, but one that changes the world quietly. She smiled faintly. I like that answer. As they watched the stars together, a new message arrived from a distant system. The sensors detected a small fleet of ships drifting toward uncharted space. The machines had not returned, but another mystery had begun. Nira turned to Aaron. Do you think they are a threat? Maybe, he said. But whatever they are, we will face them together. She nodded. Then we are ready. In the days that followed, Nira worked tirelessly with the scientists. She created protective systems for planets, designed energy pulses to neutralize harmful technology, and taught humans to recognize patterns in ways they had never imagined. Her weakness in body never mattered. Her mind became a guiding light, and her calm presence inspired confidence in those around her. Aaron stayed with her every step of the way. He ensured she rested when needed and encouraged her to trust herself. For him, watching her grow in confidence and ability was as important as any battle he had fought. One afternoon, Neera turned to him with a quiet determination in her eyes. "Aaron, we have learned how to stop machines, but what about the people who still fear each other? What about the ones who cannot forgive?" Aaron thought for a moment. "We cannot control every heart, but we can show what is possible. We can teach that understanding and patience are stronger than fear and hate, and we can start with ourselves." Neera nodded. "Then let us continue together." As they looked out across the galaxy from their ship, the stars shone bright and endless. For the first time, both of them felt hope that their bond could truly change the galaxy. Not with power, not with weapons, but with trust, courage, and the quiet strength of a mind that saw possibilities others could not. The hidden gift of the weakest princess had revealed itself. She was more powerful than anyone had ever imagined, and with Aaron by her side, the galaxy would soon see that true strength comes in many forms. And as the ship glided silently toward the edge of the stars, both of them knew that the greatest adventures were still ahead. The galaxy had changed. For the first time in centuries, humans and Zethar were learning to trust each other, and it was all thanks to one soldier and one princess who had dared to stand together. Aaron and Neera had returned from their long mission with the rogue machines. The victory was celebrated widely, and for the first time both species truly saw what cooperation could achieve. Yet the real test was only beginning. Despite the celebrations, some leaders still doubted the strength of the bond between a human and a fragile Zethar princess. Many whispered that Aaron had been foolish, that Neera's weakness would be a problem in the long run. But those who had witnessed her intelligence, calmness, and courage knew better. In the Grand Council chamber on Sirius Prime, a special meeting was called to discuss the future. The room was filled with leaders from across the galaxy, including humans, Zethar, and representatives from other species. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. The council elder Marin spoke first. "Peace has been won, but it must be maintained. We must decide how humans and Zethar will work together to ensure no threat rises again." Aaron stood quietly beside Neera, who held her hands calmly in front of her. She did not speak immediately, but her presence alone reminded everyone in the room of what had been accomplished. One of the human leaders raised a question. "How can a fragile princess lead this effort? She is weak physically and has no experience in government or war." Neera looked up calmly. "Strength is not only measured in battle," she said. "Sometimes it is measured in patience, understanding, and the courage to act when others cannot see the solution." A murmur passed through the room. Aaron glanced at her and gave a slight nod. "She has saved lives in ways no weapon could. I can say with certainty that her mind and spirit are stronger than many who claim power." The Zethar Prime Minister, who had once doubted her, now spoke. "I admit I was wrong to judge her. Princess Neera has guided us through danger, prevented destruction, and shown wisdom beyond her years. She deserves our trust." Neera's silver eyes softened. "I only did what I could. I could not have done it alone. Aaron's courage and trust allowed me to act. Together we can do more than either of us could alone." The council members listened carefully. Slowly the room filled with nods of agreement. They understood that leadership was not always about strength, but about vision and the ability to inspire others. Marin turned to Aaron. "Soldier Aaron, you chose her when no one else would have imagined it. Tell us why." Aaron looked at Neera and then back at the council. "Because I saw a heart willing to protect and heal. Because I saw someone who could remind us of what life is truly worth. The galaxy has had enough of strength used only for war. We need someone who knows that courage can be quiet, that power can be gentle, and that hope can grow even in fragile forms." A silence followed his words. Then one by one, leaders began to applaud. The sound grew louder until it filled the chamber. Neera's lips curved in a small, genuine smile. For the first time, she felt fully recognized, not for her body, not for her title, but for her mind and spirit. She realized that her weakness had never been a weakness at all. It had been a hidden strength. Over the next months, Aaron and Neera worked tirelessly to build systems of communication, trade, and safety between humans and Zethar. Together they traveled from planet to planet, sharing knowledge, technology, and culture. Humans learned to understand the Zethar way of thinking, and Zethar learned to value the warmth and creativity of human life. The quiet princess became a symbol of hope. Children in both species drew pictures of her beside Aaron, holding hands as they traveled across the stars. Songs were written about her courage and wisdom. Scientists studied her methods for peace and problem-solving. Leaders from other worlds sought her advice when they faced challenges. Yet through it all, Nira remained humble. She never claimed to be stronger than anyone, she often said. I only do what is needed. Others deserve recognition too. Courage belongs to all, not just one person. Aaron watched her and smiled. You may be humble, but you are changing the galaxy. During quiet evenings, they would stand on observation decks or garden terraces, looking at the stars together. Nira would speak softly about her dreams for the future, imagining worlds where children of both species played together, where cities were filled with music instead of warships, and where the galaxy was united by understanding rather than fear. Aaron listened, inspired by her vision. I believe we can make it happen, he said. We have already started. One step at a time, Nira nodded. Yes, and every small step matters. Even the weakest can make a difference if they act with care. Their bond deepened further as they traveled. They became not only friends but partners in shaping the future. Aaron's practical experience and courage complemented Nira's insight and intuition. Together, they solved problems that no one else could. They created systems to prevent old conflicts using technology, diplomacy, and empathy. One day they visited a planet where the Zethar had long ago colonized part of the surface. It was a lush world, green and full of life, but the colonies had been neglected during the war. Humans and Zethar worked together to rebuild the cities, restore nature, and connect communities. While walking through a newly rebuilt market, Nira noticed a young Zethar child watching her from a distance. The child's eyes were wide with awe. Nira knelt down and smiled gently. Do not be afraid. We are friends now. The galaxy is changing, and you can help it too. The child smiled back and ran to show others. In that moment, Nira realized that her quiet influence could inspire generations. Strength was not measured by the battles fought, but by the courage to guide others toward hope. As the years passed, Aaron and Nira became the bridge between species. Conflicts decreased, trade increased, and cultural understanding grew. The galaxy learned to value empathy and intelligence alongside courage and skill. One evening, as the twin suns of a distant planet set, Aaron and Nira stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The sky glowed orange and pink, and the waves shimmered under the light. Aaron turned to Nira. When I first chose you, many thought it was a mistake. They did not understand why a soldier would pick the weakest princess. Nira smiled softly. I did not understand either. I thought I was too fragile to make a difference. He took her hand gently. You are not fragile. You are strong in ways the galaxy never saw before. You have shown everyone that courage can be quiet, that hope can grow even where fear exists, and that strength is measured in what we do for others. Her silver eyes glowed in the sunset. And you, Aaron, have taught me that trust can change everything. Without you, I would never have known what I was capable of. They stood together in silence, feeling the warmth of the sun and the calm of the ocean. They knew that no matter what challenges came next, they would face them together. The council formally recognized Nira as the first ambassador between humans and Zethar. Her role was not to command armies nor to wield power, but to guide, inspire, and teach, and Aaron remained by her side, not only as a protector but as a partner in shaping the galaxy's future. Stories of their journey spread across worlds. Children grew up hearing about the human soldier who chose the weakest princess, and the princess who became the galaxy's quiet hero. They learned that sometimes the most unlikely choices could lead to the greatest outcomes. Leaders and scholars studied their methods, and citizens learned that courage could take many forms. Peace was no longer just a word spoken in halls. It was a living reality nurtured by understanding and trust. One day, while standing before a crowd of young students from multiple worlds, Nira spoke softly but firmly. Remember, strength is not only in fighting. It is in helping, in listening, and in acting when others cannot. Even the smallest voice can change the course of the stars. The children listened with wide eyes. Aaron stood beside her, proud but quiet. He knew that this was the real victory, not the end of a war, but the beginning of a galaxy that had learned to value courage in all its forms. As the sun set over the horizon, Aaron and Nira looked up at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but they no longer feared the unknown. They had learned that even the weakest could shine, and that together their light could guide billions. And so, the human soldier's surprising choice became the story of the century. Not because of battle or strength, but because one man saw potential where others saw weakness, and one quiet princess proved that courage and wisdom could change the galaxy. For Aaron and Nira, their journey was not over. But now, the universe knew a truth that would never be forgotten. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes in the quietest forms, and the most unexpected choices can change everything. The galaxy had witnessed hope, trust, and unity. And at the heart of it all stood a soldier and a princess who believed in each other, proving that the future belonged not to the strongest, but to those who chose courage, kindness, and understanding. Peace was not just an idea anymore. It was alive, nurtured by two unlikely heroes who had shown that the weakest could be the strongest, and that together, anything was possible.